You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings Podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome back to Horror Ramblings, your perfect source for all things horror. I am your host, Stephen White, and with me is my co-host, Lester Blosser.
Hello, hello.
And joining us this week in the hallowed halls of horror is an award-winning writer, producer, graphic designer, and podcaster whose work cannot be boiled down to one specific thing. Okay, 1 minute we could be talking about her menu design from Fork in the Road, and the next we could be discussing how to tap into our latent sexual energy. Now, this native of British Columbia is a one-woman creative agency who has worked on a number of, worked with a number of entrepreneurs and filmmakers. She has also served as a producer on the TV series Small Town Long Shots, as well as Wicked Ways, which also features some of her graphic design work. Her most recent endeavor with the Barker Street Cinema Troupe was the Stephen King Rules Film Festival, which took place back in August in Davenport, Iowa. Talk about cornfields. She, along with the rest of the Barker Street Cinema team, hosted the event showcasing a selection of unreleased films based on the work of Stephen King, thanks in part to King's Dollar Baby Deal. If you don't know what that is, go Google it, because I'm not going to explain it. We don't have time. Now, she not only got to view these wonderful indie film productions, but also interviewed some amazing talent like Amber Nash, Mark Bernardin, and even Lou Ferrigno. And now she's talking to us. What a step down in quality, let me tell you. Anyway, we are proud to welcome to the show Leah Coghlan, a.k.a., if you know her on Twitter, Little Leah.
Oh my goodness, that is quite the introduction. Steven, holy shit, you did your homework. Like, I sent you this thing, and I'm like, where'd you find this shit from? Thank you.
I dig. You are very welcome. I want to do our guests justice when they come on. I want people to know how amazing they are. We don't just bring in randos. We want people to know. We got people who are talented people.
I promise we didn't hire anybody to dig through your trash. I will tell you that right now.
That would have been a long trip for you guys to get up here to go through my really boring
I know some people.
Trash. I always snitch myself out anyways, so if you want the secrets, I'll tell you.
So I want to kind of touch base, do a little, because we're going to talk about a few things a little later, but I want to kind of talk about you a little bit, because we've not really had a genuine conversation. I'd say we first became acquainted via Twitter, like during, I'm not sure which one, but it had to have been like a drive-in watch-along, probably one in 2019, 2020, somewhere in there, maybe, possibly, I don't know. But then eventually, you know, we kind of had a fun back and forth. We started talking. You and I seem to have the same passion for horror films. We would kind of watch some, you know, they'd be like, hey, we're watching this tonight. Have you ever seen it? I was like, no, I had never seen it. And I do remember one good conversation we had is when we watched Gator Bait together. and you were just like, I've never seen this. And I was like, just wait. And you're like, okay. And then the scene happens. I was like, nah. And you're like, oh God. So those are fun, you know, when we can kind of have those little riffs back and forth. I've always enjoyed our conversations, but now this is a genuine conversation we get to have. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about yourself and the things that I kind of mentioned up in the intro. So for starters, during my research, because, you know, I hired a PI, there was, well, like I said, you did graphic design, and you've been doing that since 2001, right?
Oh
or maybe even
God,
longer?
Steven, like, you need a PI, like, detective agency on the side. Like, shit, I try to erase myself from the internet. I don't like people finding me. I work solely on referrals in this industry. But yeah, like, Probably 2001. I graduated from college in 2000 and then went like straight into working in newspaper where those people like beat the shit of like design ethics into me. And they were all the OGs that like, had to lay out newspapers with wax and stuff and like computers didn't exist, right? So I learned a lot from them. And then just like over the years, like then I worked in radio and learned how to copyright and blah, blah, blah. And, as of 2017, I started my own one-woman creative agency where I just like, I do everything. So copywriting, branding, graphic design, web design, consulting, social media management and content creation, all of that shit. And I mostly deal with entrepreneurs, filmmakers, and large-scale events. So every day is different.
Yeah.
Wow.
I bet. Les, she says she works with filmmakers.
I might have to, shoot her a line sometime.
That's right.
Absolutely. Right. Like this industry, especially for us small potatoes kids, is all about networking, right? And like, hey, I can do this and I can do this. And we made friends here and this and that. And a lot of like, we do a really big nerd convention up here called Northern FanCon. And so we got a lot of contacts from that into like how we made some of our films and TV shows and whatnot. And so, yeah, you never know where it's going to take you. And that's how I got into building pitch decks. That's what I do for a lot of filmmakers, is help them get their ideas out there to networks and executives and shit like that.
Well, don't let Steven be too modest. We've actually been working on a project. I see the look on his face. He hates when I talk about it just because he's so damn modest. It kills me sometimes. He took an idea that I had, and he was like, "What if we changed a few things around? What if we did this, did that?" And I'm telling you, the two of us, I wish we would have met years before, because the ideas that we bounce off each other sometimes, next level.
Oh, you're too kind, my friend. You're too kind.
Somebody's got to be.
I know. So, with what you're doing right now as this one-woman creative agency, would you say that is like your drive, your passion? Because, starting with graphic design, that seemed to kind of be your end. But was that like your initial passion, or was it just something that just was something you were doing just because it was like an opportunity, and then it just led to other opportunities down the line?
Well, it kind of like I fluked out in graphic design. So when I moved up here, my parents had already been here for a year, like over 20 years ago. And I was like, I need to go to college. I don't want to fucking work at Blockbuster the rest of my life, or. So I took a program called Writing and New Media Technologies. And like the rest of the class, we all thought it was a writing class. We didn't even know what New Media Technologies was. And like, some of the programs I use today didn't even exist back then. And it just like, it turned out that like, I was probably one of the only people that graduated the class, very first class of that, like, or that program of that year. And like 20 years later, like I've, that education has paid itself off. And so I would start doing like really small things. Like I said, I went into newspaper and got a really great foundation for the real world there. But then like, I would go and do this, that, and the other little tiny thing, and kind of just like built up that reputation around. And so it just really evolved, and I got stuck. The money was great. I got stuck working in telecommunications for 8 years. And then in 2017, I just got laid off. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to fucking work for the man anymore. Where I live is also like, there's not a lot of opportunities for what I do. So I'm just going to go branch out and do it on my own. And so it's been about 4 or 5 years now, and it just keeps like evolving, and people keep getting my name, and I'm like, yeah, I can do this. Yeah, I can do this, etc. And like, I have people that I work for all through like America and Canada. So I've lucked out by fluke. And it is a passion. I really love designing, and I really love writing, and I've had some really great opportunities.
Yeah, based on what you said, having that job that pays really well, I feel like that's where I'm kind of stuck. Is I have a really good paying job, and I don't want to knock it, because it does afford me a few opportunities to kind of work on other things. I would like to be doing something else, but I can't just drop this good paying job to go rush off and follow a dream. At least not now. I'm not a young man anymore. So,
well, I looked at it as an opportunity from the universe. Like, I was like, holy shit, what am I going to do with myself? Sure. And like, it was hard. It was a security blanket. It was a soul sucking job that I fucking hated, but the money was fantastic. The perks, like, it's how I bought my house, etc. But all of a sudden one day it's just yanked from me, and it was just like, well, you've been thinking about this for a long time, so just go and do it. I don't make anywhere near the money that I used to in that corporate gig, but you know, I can, working for myself, I can go to places like Iowa to go do a film festival, or, you know, go do a nerd convention, this, that, or the other thing, right? So
and you're probably enjoying your job so much more. So I can imagine it's just, you know, it pays off in that way. You might not be making the money, but you're just enjoying life a hell of a lot more.
yeah, it's a very different experience. Like, I put a bra on. What the fuck, man? Like, I don't do that. I don't have a shower every single day. I'm giving you all the insider secrets now. It's be like, oh, it's 1 o'clock. I should probably go take a nap, you know?
So how did you get involved with the Barker Street Cinema people? I mean, were they established prior to your joining them?
So Norm Coyne, he and I actually like went to the same program in college, but he was a year behind me when I was finishing up. And then like, it just kind of ended up that like, he was always like my career doppelganger. I worked at the newspaper and then he did, you know, and then he was doing this and then doing that. So we've known each other for about like close to 20 years, and he's all about creating moments for people, and he's really loyal to like his circle of friends and whatnot. So he's always bringing us along to do cool things. And so like, I'd say in the last like 5 years, we've really just gone balls to the wall with like everything crazy that we do, like from FanCon to Stephen King Rules to filming stuff to doing another nerd convention in Alberta. You know, that guy's always got something on the go, and you know, like, I'd follow him off the cliff, like, pretty much, because like these opportunities and the people that we've met are just really wild, and I'm super, super thankful for my friendship with Norm. So I don't know, they were making independent films, like little small ones. Oh goodness, a couple years before I got involved, but then their big one was doing The Doctor's Case, which was the Stephen King Dollar Baby film. And they were just like, hey, come make a poster for us. And then things kind of just evolved. Then we went and made like Wicked Ways, and I became a producer on there and did all sorts of things. And, you know, so it's always just like, hey, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? And, you know, when we do the bigger stuff, we're meeting new connections of bigger people. And so it just kind of keeps evolving. So
kind of jumping off of what you said about doing producer work on Wicked Ways, is that something you're kind of dipping your toe in, you want to do more of?
Oh, I absolutely love it. I love like you know, this is what we should do. This is the concept. This is the direction and stuff. And you had brought up Small Town Long Shots in the beginning, and that is like a baby between Norm and myself, where we're teaching people like how to bring film to wherever you live, right? And how to make TV, movie, etc. And all of that came from like, we haven't put it out. We've got 3 years of me like interviewing some really like fucking awesome people. But we're taking those questions and, you know, we're like, how do you do this? And each season has kind of evolved. Like, I hadn't interviewed anyone in like 20 years. And my very first one was like Edward James Olmos. And I nearly shat my pantaloons because he's like, put the camera here, you put your chair there. And I'm like, okay. Whatever you say, man. Like, and it's, you know, it's funny because I was very green at that point in our first year. And so like seeing the difference to like year 2 and 3, I love interviewing people now. So even if this never gets released, like I've talked to some really cool people.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the interview, process, I can definitely attest to. I mean, I have not interviewed anyone near as amazing as some of the people you have, but there does become some sort of comfort level, I guess, that you find, and you kind of get into a rhythm. I could still get a little nervous to begin with, and then as the conversation flows, you're just like, oh yeah, they're a normal person just like me. It doesn't, you're starstruck, and it just kind of takes you away. I'm bad at conventions. I look at somebody and I'm like, there's that person. Oh my God.
Back in the day, like before we did any of these shows, Norm would do like, he would bring like a random person like Ron Perlman or Kim Coates up. And in those days, like I'd shit my pants. Like I remember Kim Coates putting his arm around me and he's like, oh, she's shaking. And I'm like, I am. And then I like just like fucking like had a convulsion. But you know, we're like, this is coming up in May, our 8th year of FanCon. And I kind of don't really geek out about people anymore. Like I look for the cool people, and like I would say 9.8 times out of 10, people are fucking awesome. So
yeah,
and they are just regular people, and they are great to chat with. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's pretty awesome. I cannot wait until we have certain opportunities like that. We're chasing one. I don't want to say anything just yet, and it's on me to chase it down. And I'd say that I'm holding back until I feel prepared. So
How are you not prepared? Because like, holy shit, man! Like my introduction, like, what did you do? Like, look up 1999 on the internet?
It's
a
research.
Big one.
Yeah,
it's a big one.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those situations where I want to make sure that I have done. I feel like there's a lot of homework to do, and I don't want to screw it up. I don't want to come in and fumble something and be like, well, actually, this is what you got wrong. I'm like, because the moment that happens, because I've done that before on another podcast, or at least I felt like I missed a detail, and they were just like, well, actually, and then I was like, well, shit, now I look like an idiot because I missed this one little detail. So I want to make sure that he's as impressed. Oh,
That's okay. That's okay.
That's fine.
You said he. There's a lot of he's in the universe.
That's true. That's true.
Let's put it this way. This won't ruin anything either. Steven is such a preparer. This gentleman has been in the business for a long time, so there's a lot of research to do.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'll just say that, and hopefully it'll work out because it could just not turn out at all. So who knows? But enough about that. Let's talk about you and the Radical Sex Witches, because that is your podcast. And when I brought it up at a message, you were just like, nah, I don't want to talk about it. And like I told you, I don't think it's a podcast for me because I feel like it's targeted toward women. And so, but I did listen to it. I did.
Still listening, honest.
Yeah.
Like, oh God, which topics did you listen to? Because like, I just go off the deep end and,
I mean, at least it was true conversations. It wasn't like guys were trying to do something, I don't know. It felt like a natural conversation. Maybe not one that I've ever heard because I've never listened in on women talking about sex before. That seemed like foreign territory because you don't talk about it like men do. Men are just like, hey, man, that kind of thing. But I think it's good. It's a positive thing. I think certain women kind of need that, it kind of opens that up. But so where did the idea for that come about?
I think all women need something like this, not just certain women. So my podcast co-host, Carla Wainwright, we worked together for like 3 years, and she was one of my clients. And so we had like this whole big thing that I did for her. And one day she was just like, I really want to do a podcast. And I was like, you should let me be a part of this podcast with you. And she was like, okay, really? Like, and I was like, yeah. And so she's like she deals all with women. If you go to her website, carlawainwright.com, a plug, lots of sexual healing, couples therapy, all this different type of stuff. She's just fantastic. She's a yoga practitioner. And so, yeah, she wanted to focus on the witchy and the spirituality for women. And so I always say that she's like Glenda the Good Witch, and I'm the Wicked Witch of the West. I'm very much the bull in the china shop when I come in, and I think that we have a really great dynamic. A lot of people actually comment on that because of the differences in us. And so we've just, it's amazing the people that listen and whatnot, especially when guys listen. Like, I couldn't believe that you listen to some of these. Like, there's some, I don't want to say like the bad words on your show, but like we did a show about sluts and like the C word and, like pussy massage. Like, those are just to throw a couple out to, I think the sex
I need to check the show out.
I mean, hey, as a dude, you can have that insight to like woman ways, right? Or how to be like, hey, surprise, I know where the clitoris is, and a whole bunch of other erogenous zones.
Women are a lot more vulgar than I think a lot of men think when it comes to talking about sex.
Sure.
I've learned that over the years, and it's whew.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of fun. I really, really enjoy it. Today we just launched our 82nd episode, and I actually peer pressured Carla into dedicating the entire month of October to horror and Halloween, because like we don't
Nice.
normally talk about that, and I'm like, that is my jam. I love talking about that, so we are doing it. So we did the bad bitches of horror, so like villains and whatnot, female villains, and like there's a lot of it always links back to the patriarchy. So
Yeah. But see, that's exactly why we brought you on, is because you are a horror fan. Well, I noticed that. And just because you have a sex podcast, it doesn't mean it can't just tie in.
Hey, horror
and
is
sex,
sexy.
That's
Horror
right.
is sexy.
They're hand in hand. I mean, honestly, you get TNA, boobs, beasts, and blood.
that's right.
That's right.
You have sex the right or wrong way, all those things are involved too. I'm just saying.
It's true. So before we jump into our big topic that we kind of brought Leah on for, I did want to talk about two things. First, I want to kind of do a shout out real quick to the Mutant Fam Twitter account. They gave us a nice shout out.
Yeah, they did.
So that was very nice, and they hopefully other people kind of became aware of our podcast and are going to join in. And then they if they're new, this episode right now might be their entry point, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I know her and I know them. That's awesome.
Oh,
so
I was going to apologize for myself. Right there.
No.
Not at all.
Uh-oh.
So hopefully if this is your first episode, welcome. Hopefully you know us, or you're getting to know us, and it's all fun. Secondly, I wanted to ask both of you if you happen to watch this or not. Now, there's actually two things that came out here recently. One, I'm a little disappointed that I didn't watch, and I probably should have, and both of you may have watched it already, but I did not watch Hellraiser.
I haven't watched it yet, but it's on the list for the week.
I've started it. I've started it, but with the kids and everything, I have not gotten as far as I would like to say, but without spoiling anything, I'm really digging it.
Okay.
And
I
think
love Clive Barker so much.
Yeah, and he had a lot to do with this new one, and I didn't realize this, and I feel stupid for not realizing this sooner. The whole reason that he directed the Hellraiser film was because he had two other films made from books that he had written, and they didn't turn out as well. Hellraiser was his baby, so he was like, I'm directing this one. But
that's fair.
The new one, it is a different take on it, definitely. But it works for me. Like, I really dig it. So, just gonna put that out there real quick.
Yeah, I've been hearing that like people have been really enjoying it, and people can be very rabid in these fandoms of being like, no, it needs to be this way. But like, if it's done properly or smartly, like it's easy to get sucked into that story. And literally, he can do anything. I have like tons of his books, and like I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess that Pinhead, or Hell Priest, for those who know that one, Hell Priest is based off of several different characters from his works, like as a whole. And they never specified if Pinhead, Hell Priest, whatever you want to call him, they never specified if the character was male or female. So that really leaves that door open, which I think is brilliant. And I'm kind of glad that they went in the different direction and they had a woman play Pinhead this time around. I think that works better, just because Pinhead's awesome as a woman. I'm going to say that right now, just phenomenal. And trying to replace Doug Bradley with just another guy, no.
I think
not gonna
it's
work
a smart choice to do that, right? And we have seen female Cenobites before, and I could just watch. I want more lore on the Cenobites.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm looking forward to watching it. I was thinking about watching it last night, and I was tired. It was a work day, and I was like, I'll get to it. But I did watch another thing that I felt like is in line with this, and I wanted to see if either of you heard about it or watched it. It's called Werewolf by Night. This is it might be one of those things you just kind of look at and be like,
the Marvel, right?
Yes.
How was that? Because I wanted to watch that too, possibly this weekend.
Yeah, it was a Marvel Studios special presentation, which I guess I'm hearing they're considering doing more of. I would actually be okay with it because this is a very obscure character that unless you are someone like myself who is you know Marvel, you're like deep into the lore and the characters, you're going to be like, who in the fuck is Werewolf by Night? I don't know what that is. This is a character that came out back in the 70s, created by Roy Thomas. 5-page story in a comic I believe was Tales of Suspense is where he first premiered. So it was a very obscure character. But they did, what was really interesting is it was a throwback to the 1930s Universal monster films. Okay, that would be the best way I could explain it. Now, would I say that it's accurate to that? Not necessarily, because while it's in black and white and we kind of have the aesthetic, the cinematography really lends itself to more modern day filmmaking, which, if it were me, and it may have been a bad call to actually try and replicate those old Universal films, it could have been jarring. So I understand that maybe they didn't want to do that. But a lot of elements are really in essence to those old Universal monster films. And the director I think this is his first directing gig, Michael Giacchino. He's actually a music composer. He's done a lot of music composing for Marvel films. I know he did Jurassic World, The Incredibles. I mean, the man's a chameleon. I love his music. And I remember hearing him on an episode of Gilbert Gottfried's Amazing Colossal Podcast, and they had talked about the old monster movies from way back when, cool. And he was a genuine fan. So why wouldn't you give it to a man who has that passion for these old films? And you get some kind of film grain. It's not overtly obvious, but you'll see it kind of pop up here and there, like you catch glimpses of it, which I thought was kind of a nice touch. The werewolf design really kind of harkens back to Lon Chaney and the just elements of it, you know what I mean? It doesn't look specifically like it, but when you look at it, being, oh yeah, and even the way he moves kind of has some certain elements to it like that. So it's like a little under an hour.
Oh, okay.
I found it to be a lot of fun. I highly recommend it, especially if you're into those old Universal monster films. This is a nice throwback to that. So definitely check it out.
I'm going to. I actually put it on my list yesterday, like of the, I can just queue shit up in all of these million streaming services we have at the tip of our fingers.
Right? I mean, they're trying to get us to subscribe to so many. I avoided Peacock like the plague, and then they were just like, we have this show that you've been wanting to watch, so, And I was like, son of a bitch. I guess I'm paying for it. But hey, at least Paramount is considering folding in Showtime, so at least that'll be one less that I have to worry about.
That would be
which
good.
Would be nice. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Les, do you have anything to bring up before we jump into our topic?
I really can't think of anything right offhand. I was going to ask a random question to you.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, what would you say is one of your favorite franchises of horror, and why? I was kind of curious. Asking the hard questions today.
To me, I think Steven should answer. I don't even know. I don't know if I have a favorite franchise. So when someone says to me, what's your favorite movie or your favorite book? Like, I can't pick. There's just so many things to love for like all different types of reasons, honestly. I don't think that I don't know if I could pick a favorite franchise of horror. I'm just like, yeah.
What would you say is your more recently favorite? Like, is there anything that stands out a little bit more to you that's come out recently that you kind of liked a little bit more than you thought you would?
Have you guys like watched Bodies yet?
I have heard of it. I have not watched it.
Okay, so I won't give anything away by any means, but it's a bunch of kids in a house and they all start dying and you're like, who did it kind of deal. And like that part to me was like, okay, I get it. This is pretty standard. But the last 5 minutes of the film just fucking changes everything for me, that I was like, oh my God. Like you just, yeah. And so I found it was just very different, and it speaks to a very current time that we live in regards to, you know, wanting to be social media famous is basically what I'll say to it. So if you get a chance to watch that, if you can get past, like, you know, the majority of the film, and it's not bad by any means. There's great deaths and stuff like that in there. But if you can get past that to the end, it's I really like my brother. He's super bougie about horror films and like fucking hates anything mainstream. He's all like the OG films from like Italy, Japan, shit like that. And even he was like, I guess he's like, I hate Pete Davidson, but I'm still thinking about this film today, so I must have liked it.
Add that to the list.
You know what? As she brought that up, it reminded me there were two other films I wanted to bring up. And I know that the two of you may have either watched these or want to watch these. But I finally saw X.
Yeah.
Have you, either of you seen X?
Yes.
Okay.
Still gotta watch it.
Primo. I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to watching Pearl whenever I can. I don't know how it... And is there a third one? Is there a third movie?
Planned it as a
Maxine.
trilogy. Yeah.
Okay, so...
They were doing casting for it, actually.
Yeah.
I had seen they posted up on like some of the social media sites. They were looking for extras for it or something.
Oh,
and they were doing some kind of competition.
Oh, God, I would rather drink turpentine and piss on a brush fire than do any sort of fucking extra work. Like, don't do it, guys. You sit there for 20 hours a day and you might you might get fed. But, I mean, in the situation of a big budget film like that, you go do it at least once and then just never go do it again. But I believe I believe that they filmed X and Pearl at the same time, is from my understanding of it. And yeah, X was really fun. I liked it, and just the deaths were good in it. And, you know, Mia Goth as the old creepy lady, too, is, And it's Brittany Snow, right? Like, that's the blonde. Yeah, I was really surprised to see her boobs in that film. She's literally been around forever. And I've always enjoyed her, but she's always played like these bubblegum pop kind of girls or whatnot. And so to see her as this like porn legend going to Pound Town, you know, like I was pretty surprised by that.
Same. Yeah, it was like, oh, all right. So she's moved on up. She's grown up. So I'm looking forward to the other two. I was a little surprised when I heard that there was a third, and I was like, all right, well, cool. Whatever you want to keep doing. So I'm going to assume it's going to go forward, and we'll follow Maxine.
Well, he planned it from the very beginning, before X was even released, that it would be a trilogy.
Okay. Yeah. So, wonderful. The other one, All right, 13 Fanboy. Have either of you seen this?
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
All right. So I don't want to dissuade you from watching it if it's something that you want to watch. But I am, Les knows this, I'm a huge Friday the 13th fan. I've always loved the franchise. I know it gets flack. I know where the bad parts are, so to speak. But I still enjoy it from beginning to end. I'll love every minute of it. I don't care. I don't really know how I feel about this film because it feels like there's a good idea there. And it just got executed poorly. And that's not to shit on, what's her name? Debbie Voorhees, the director, kind of the main focus of the movie. You know, first time director, as far as I know. I don't know. She produced it and it was just her idea. It might have been real experiences. I don't know. But I felt like the execution, especially when we find out who the killer is, it kind of makes you just scratch your head like, why would this person be doing this? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I don't know. It lost me a little bit. The acting is a little, which is odd because everyone in there is an actor. I guess playing themselves was too much of a stretch. Again, I don't want to dog this movie. I don't want to be hateful. But I was disappointed. I saw the reviews and people were like, "Well, this is so stupid." But I'm always one to give the benefit of the doubt. But I kind of have to agree. I was just like, okay, yeah. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again.
I try not to listen to reviews, especially on Twitter. Jesus Christ.
Sure.
Everybody's always fighting about something like, or they're like, this is the best thing ever. And I'm like, meh. You know, like, meh, it was okay. So, like, I try, and I'll even go as far as not watching a trailer And so I actually, like, with my friend Tara, we went and saw a couple weeks ago Barbarian, and I had no concept of what it was about whatsoever. I just heard like people saying Barbarian, and I just kind of like scroll past it, and then we went to the theater. And to me, to like have no expectations, I'm more surprised in the long run than you know. I find that the fun way to go into things.
I wish I could do that more often, because I'm usually kind of curious that I'll check out a trailer, but the rare few times you can go in blind and just be pleasantly surprised, it's always a treat.
I think I was more of like, what the fuck did we just watch at the end of Barbarian? I'm not saying it was bad, but and it's different for sure. But I was just like, I'm never drinking milk. Like, first of all, I think milk is disgusting, and after seeing like what they do with milk and that, no.
I don't know if I want to watch this now.
Yeah, you do. Go watch it.
Yeah, I probably will.
Like, how many times can you kill Justin Long in a movie? You know, like.
Oh. Yeah. Yes, Barbarian. Shit. Yes. I didn't connect the dots. Oh, yes. Yes, I want to watch this movie. Screw that. To hell with it. Yep, I'm watching it. I forgot.
Watch it. It's fun. If you have no concept of what it is going in, like, it's great it's a fun watch.
I heard about it because I think he was on an episode of Good Mythical Morning the week that came out. And I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know that he had a movie. And then I saw a link to a trailer that said Justin Long's new movie. And I was like, that's weird. So I just clicked on it. And it was all bubbly and just like, hey, from the studio that brought you Alvin and the Chipmunks. And I was like, what the hell is this? And then it just takes a dark turn. I was like, oh, shit. But then I remembered he said Barbarian. I was like, oh, that's the movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
He's like the king of dying in horror films.
He really is when you think about it. Oh my God, Drag Me to Hell, Tusk.
Yeah.
I know. Doesn't he die in like one of the Jeepers Creepers?
The very first one.
Yeah.
And he's in the second one. Like his spirit or whatever's in the second one.
But we don't want to talk about those.
No. And I definitely don't want to talk about them doing that Reborn film that they did.
I've already heard.
Yeah, I don't need to watch it.
Yeah. I didn't even want to watch it, so I looked at the reviews, and they were exactly what I thought they were going to be. The movie was just awful.
Yeah. The not to cross platforms or anything, but all the vitriol I got to hear this week for internet hatred is for Chris Pratt and how, you know, he's doing Mario's voice in this movie. And, oh my God, people, it's Chris Pratt's voice. It's like, well, what did you expect? He's doing a voice over in an animated thing. What did you expect him to sound like? Jump out and go, it's a me. Oh, no. He was hired to do his voice. He's doing the voice of the character, like Chris Pratt. And people are just so pissed. I don't understand the hatred. I really don't.
Well,
the only thing I will say
to Super Mario.
The only thing I will say about Mario, real quick, the only thing I will say about the trailer, you can think what you want about Chris Pratt, but I'm glad we got Jack Black as Bowser because, yeah,
he's awesome in anything that he does.
As soon as I saw Bowser and that opening, I went, "Holy crap! They actually made Bowser a badass."
Yeah, I genuinely was expecting Jack Black to come out and saying, "Hey, yeah, woo!" and then just start burning shit down. And I was like, "All right," but no, he kept it reserved. It was cool. It's fine. But no, the internet.
Well, I don't know. I think his name is it Charles Martinet, I believe.
Yeah.
He's the voice of Mario. We actually brought him up to FanCon one year, and he's like the nicest gentleman ever, and he is the voice of Mario, and so I think that's why people are having a problem with it. I don't really know if it's actually because it's Chris Pratt. It's just, again, what we were talking about, deviating from what we know and how we think things should be.
I can't. Do you really think you could sit through a movie, hour and a half, 90 minutes of just hearing, oh no, oh geez, oh my goodness? I mean, come on. I think at some point you'd be like, all right, that's getting grating, man. You don't have to do that.
I think it would have been interesting if they would have brought him on and maybe.
Well, he is going to be in the movie.
Oh, good.
Well, they could even do the more OG Mario sounds, like when he's fighting Bowser, or if he, if something funny happens and he gets, like, let's say he sits on something hot or something, the sounds that Mario would make, the screams and stuff. They could integrate that in and it would still work, I think.
The internet's already taken care of it. There was already a video of someone who spliced in the Mario voice with the trailer. So if you want to go check that out, it's there.
But I couldn't do Mario all the way through, I don't think.
I don't understand how people, especially in horror too, is like we just shit on these things before we even get a chance to see them. And I really just don't like being a part of that myself. Like, let's just wait and see.
Well, it's same with reviews, you know, where people jump on is like, well, the reviews say, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, I was listening to, what was it that I was looking at just today or last night, was talking about a movie that I love that has such a low, Bride of Chucky, that's what it was. Okay, I love Bride of Chucky, probably one of my all-time favorites out of the series. And it has like a Rotten Tomatoes score of like 42, 47 audience critics. Screw them.
Yeah.
That's my all-time favorite. I don't give a damn what anyone says. I love it.
Yeah.
So don't worry about what other people say.
And
if
don't
you
shit
enjoy
on
it,
other people if they don't like something or if they like something. I really hate how that happens in the horror community on Twitter. It's like, why are you here to fight? Like, we all love horror. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. I mean, we can all have difference of opinion. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, we all... we've even done it on an episode. We've talked about movies that everybody loved that we didn't necessarily like, and movies that we love that not a whole lot of people.
Right.
You know, Killer Clowns from Outer Space just recently, I feel, has really started coming back into the limelight.
Yeah.
I loved that movie the first time I had seen it, and anybody that I talked to about it, you know, they'd look at me and say, that movie's so stupid, it's ridiculous. I'm like, it's one of those things where it's campy, but it's good because it's campy. You know,
but I think that also speaks to a matter of taste, maybe your humor, because some people, they don't like dark humor. They don't like campiness. They don't, you know, that's just not their bag, and that's fine. You know, we all have different sense of humor, and I think that's where a lot of it really boils down to. It's just taste, preference. You know, they may like watching Real Housewives of Orange County or whatever the fuck, and I don't want to watch that. I have no interest in it, so we're going to deviate.
And I have to bring it up at least once every episode. I didn't like the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, but that doesn't mean that there's not people out there that do.
Shots.
It's funny that you say that, like, you know, people's preferences and tastes. And so I really have to attribute this to The Last Drive-In and Joe Bob and Darcy and what they're all about, because on my own previously, I could never go watch B horror movies. Like, I would, it was not my bag, but they gave me, and being part of the community and everything and having fun on Twitter, it really changed my perception to these smaller budget films. And I completely enjoyed them, and it was so unexpected. And so I really have to thank them for that, because now I'll be like, this looks like shit. I'm going to go watch it, and it's probably going to be so fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There are a few that I'll probably mention in our topic that I've walked away. You know, they go to second feature and they're showing one. I'm like, eh.
Yeah.
And it's because of just my interactions with said films in the past. We'll get into it. Let's talk about what we're here to talk about, and we'll get into it deeper.
Let's do it.
Because, you know, when I invited Leah onto the show, I decided, I was like, hey, well, what do you want to talk about? What's something in horror that you want to talk about? And she was kind of going through some details, and zombies just kind of popped up, and she's like, you know what, zombies? I'm talking about zombies a lot here lately. I was like, well, shit, let's talk about zombies, because we've not talked about zombies. I thought that would be a perfect way for us to get into zombies. And I guess what we're really going to explore is not just, you know, zombie culture as a whole, but what was the impetus that kind of kicked it off into the mainstream? Because if we want to go back, and it depends on how far we want to go back, because me personally, if we wanted to talk about the zombie craze as it is today, Night of the Living Dead would be our pinpoint.
Yeah.
Obviously, we could go back to 1932, White Zombie, Bela Lugosi, but we're talking voodoo zombies. It's a little hazy.
Than what we know.
Yeah, we're talking about the dead rising from the graves, eating human flesh and brains, and that whole, what you think of as a zombie today.
Zombies as we know them today.
Yeah, not like Serpent and the Rainbow Zombies and all that jazz. So, Night of the Living Dead, 1968, first modern zombie film as we know it. In the public domain, you can watch it any and everywhere. People have chopped it to pieces, which is ridiculous. I don't understand why you would touch it. It's fine as it is. Mm-hmm. But it really was kind of one of those films that just, it did something wholly unique. Like, we had not seen the kind of carnage that they put in that film. You know, the flesh and just, the gore factor was really unheard of at the time. And it really set the standard for something wholly unique. Audiences were freaking out. You know, they had never seen anything like that. Zombies were not a thing, you know, and you'd think with something like that, something unique. I mean, today, when something that has never been seen before becomes popular, studios latch onto it. It was like, we got to do that. We got to do that. Now, maybe it was because this was really, really dark and graphic and just unseen in the wrong kind of ways. We're like, we can't do that. We'll get X ratings. And, you know, we're kind of afraid of that. So it's very possible that that's why filmmakers and the like didn't really latch on to it. But there were others that kind of followed suit. I mean, it really was kind of Romero's baby for the longest time. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, if either one of you know this, but I don't really think there was another zombie film like that until Dawn of the Dead. And that was a full decade later. Mm-hmm. And then we really got to see what they could do with gore. Tom Savini comes in. Oh, man, I had never seen anything like it. I don't know how you guys felt about it, but the graphic nature of it all was something I had never witnessed up to that point. I was, you know, I'd seen Tom Savini's work and stuff, but that one, oh my God, you know, I think seeing the bite out of the woman's neck at the beginning, that just, whew, that was intense. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on Dawn of the Dead, because I could go on for a while about it.
I actually watched, hit Romero's Dawn of the Dead way later into the game. Somehow, just living in buttfuck areas of Canada just didn't get to me. And, you know, we also come from the video store generation too, right? So getting certain tapes of things, it was hard. It was hard. So I didn't see it until I was way later. And by that point, I was very well established into zombies. And I don't know if you're going to hate me for this, but I have so much love for the 2004 Zack Snyder version of Dawn of the Dead. First of all, they filmed it in Canada. It has a Canada's sweetheart, Sarah Polley, in there, as well as a bunch of other Canadians and whatnot. And the time that film came out was still not very big. It wasn't like the Walking Dead universe, everything is zombies, zombies, zombies. It came out at a time that they weren't really happening.
Sure.
And I really I've watched that one a billion times. I just have a lot of love for it.
I don't dislike it. I have a problem with Zack Snyder as a filmmaker because I feel like he got so much praise for being a visionary, and I find that to be a improper misnomer for the man, because when you watch a film like Watchmen and people are like, oh my God, look what he did. He's such a visionary. And it's like, he took what was on the panel that someone drew and just did that. How the fuck is he a visionary? Being a visionary is having your own vision, not taking someone else's. Right. And that's what I felt like he wasn't quite doing. Now, at the time, I don't feel like he was really established, so I didn't have any kind of beef with everybody saying that, oh, look what the amazing stuff he's doing. Plus, the movie was written by James Gunn. Already gets, you know, I feel like that's what kind of elevates it and makes it just
and
so good.
He wasn't a big deal back then. I didn't like Army of the Dead. I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. And I was like, this was really disappointing, because I do have a ton of love for Dawn of the Dead, and it was and they were virtually unknown compared to what you're saying now, the visionary standard. So I think it feels like a different film to me than what he's doing now.
It definitely does, and I think Dawn of the Dead would be the one film of his that I've watched more than once. That's not one I think of with him and say, oh my God, it's Zack. I can't. Oh my God, Lester, go on, because I'll get off on a rant with Batman and all that.
I was just gonna say I I was familiar with the original Dawn of the Dead,
Mm-hmm.
which to this day still the ending. I remember watching that film with my father, and he's like, "You'll love it, you'll love it." And you see these, you see the one character, you see him survive, and then at the end, it's like, why?
Mhm.
It always throws me off. But I remember seeing it. I remember loving the original through and through, and seeing the one in 2004. That was the first time that I'd ever seen zombies run. Which that's a question I'll bring up after I say this. But I actually really do enjoy. I will stand with you when in saying that the 2004 movie. I actually really enjoy it. There's it's not the best movie ever done, but
No.
there are a lot of aspects to it that I can appreciate. The gore factor's great. It's kind of campy, but I thought the zombies were scary.
Yeah.
I thought they were what I wanted zombies to be. These unstoppable, killing machines that don't get tired. And the running just, the fact that they ran, that just added a level of just fear to it.
And look at the people that are in that film too, man. Like Ving Rhames, Mekhi Phifer, is it Ty Burrows, the guy from what's it called, that family show?
Modern Family.
And he's such a piece of shit in it. Like,
but he was so good.
He's so good. And Sarah Polley, like, that was one of the very few big Hollywood films she ever did, aside from like Go. Because she grew up in Canada doing like Canadian films as a child and television, and it was to pick a zombie film as one of your few big Hollywood blockbusters. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and even the opening, I don't want to say like the start of the zombie apocalypse in it, when the little girl's in their house, and he's he sees that she's injured, and he's like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And just the chunk out of the neck right in the beginning. From that very moment, you're like, "Holy crap, what is going on here?" And the zombie baby in it, like I'd never seen that before, so I'm like, this is really like next level. But real quick question for both of you, I want to know how you both feel. Do you prefer your zombies to walk or run? I think zombies would start out running, and then as they rot, they would slowly start to slow down. But what do you prefer?
Leah, you field that question first.
I don't have a preference, because it really depends in the universe of those zombies in that film if it works or not, right? Like, I find them equally as terrifying. Like, if you're in a slow walking universe of zombies, but there's like a fucking 100 of them and they're circling you, like, that's scary. If you're in a fast running zombie universe, like, holy shit, like, I love eating cake and I'd be dead in a second. Like, I find them both equally as scary. And if they're done properly, like, I don't really have a preference of it. I just really hope that if it happened in the universe for real, that they weren't fast. That would fucking suck.
Right.
I would say, like, I've fielded this question before, and I feel like for me, I can appreciate the fast, but I have kind of a love for the slow moving, simply because I feel like there's a slow burn to the terror, because you can look at them in small droves and be like, no worries. I can get by this. No worries. And then you kind of get cocky, and then you let your guard down because you think you're safe, and then you're not expecting the horde, and then it's kind of a slow moving death. They're going to come get you. There's going to be more of them, and they just continue to multiply until you're overwhelmed and you can't do anything about it. I think there's something more terrifying versus just something coming straight at you and you'd be like, "Oh shit, I gotta run." It's not knowing if you're going to make it out or not. Like you feel confident you can get by, and then you're like, "Oh shit, I underestimated my attackers."
Right.
Now, you just made me think of something sort of to piggyback off of that. Have either of you seen the movie Red Sand?
Not
familiar to either one of you?
It sounds familiar. Who knows? I forget 5 minutes ago usually.
So Red Sand is a zombie movie. It's about a woman who is lost in the desert, and there's one zombie.
Oh, yes.
That's coming after her.
Yes.
And it's not a running zombie, it's a walking zombie. But they add the suspense because they show the fact that the zombie doesn't need to sleep, it doesn't need to stop, or anything like that. Like, she has to, eventually stop walking, and she finds like a rock to sleep on in one part of the movie that the zombie can't reach up to.
Yeah.
And she wakes up and she almost rolled off the rock.
Yeah.
But it has a good way of building the suspense. You don't have the horde and you have a walking zombie, but the way that they piece it together, it still keeps that suspense going.
Yeah, he's persistent as fuck. I have seen that. I just completely, I totally forgot about that film and how different.
That's one of those hidden
was.
gems.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
I have to look that up. I have not seen that. So piggybacking, going back to where we were in our zombies. So with Dawn of the Dead, we are kind of introduced from that point, because of that movie. I honestly feel like we get into Italian zombies.
Mm-hmm.
So Zombie 2, or Zombie to Just Us, released a year later, 1979. Lucio Fulci's first zombie flick.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of he dabbles with the voodoo aspect of it, but he still kind of adheres to the dead, the rotting corpses, which I kind of found interesting. It's like hearkening back to the old ways, but still kind of sticking to the more modern. Now, to my knowledge, based on the information, the research that I did, he had been experimenting with extreme violence, graphic violence, since like the late 60s, early 70s. There was a film he did called A Lizard in Woman's Skin. I don't know if either of you have seen this. Featured a scene involving mutilated dogs that looked so real that Fulci was charged with animal cruelty.
Right. Yeah.
But so he had to produce the models or the puppets or whatever and be like, no, this is all fake. So extreme gore turned out to be like his signature trademark, with numerous films kind of getting those X ratings where like, oh, you've got to cut this down because this is way, way, way out there. And yeah, I mean, let's talk about Zombie for a moment, because I think if anybody who knows about zombie films and you're aware of this film, two scenes come to mind. It's Zombie versus Shark and the eyeball. Oh my God, the eye, man. Just thinking about it. It's such a great effect. It really is. But damn, it's just, I don't think I'd seen anything like that before. And I'd love to hear any of your takes on it.
You're going to hate me.
Go ahead.
No, go for it.
You're going to hate me. I'm not a huge fan of like the Italian horrors. And my go talk to my brother. He'd be like, talk to you for like 2 hours about it. It's just not my jam. And I don't know. I think it's just similar to the fact of what I said about being in buttfuck Canada places and only having so many videotapes available to us, that it kind of came to me later in life. So there are things that I definitely appreciate of it. Like, like you said, the shark.
Yeah.
Shark versus zombie. Like, that shit's crazy.
Yeah, it's insane. And I'm with you. These are the type of films that I find to be a hard watch.
Yeah.
I had a buddy of mine that he introduced me to Italian horror. In fact, it was through him that I found Dawn of the Dead and Zombie. He was like, hey, you got to check these out. And I had this weird back of the head kind of thing where it was just like, I understand it's going to be super graphic. I don't know how I'm going to react to it, because, I'd seen graphic movies before, but this felt like it was next level. And I wasn't sure. And it was fascinating. With Zombie, it was fascinating. But the movies are so slow.
So slow.
And it's just like, God damn, just hurry
Please
up.
Don't lynch us, Italian-loving.
I know, yeah. I feel like it may have been, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong here, but there was a scene, I want to say it was in The Gates of Hell or City of the Living Dead, which follows this one up in 1980. There was a scene in one of these movies where someone had acid or something dropped on their face, and their face was supposed to melt off or whatever. This scene took 5 to 10 minutes showing, and I'm like, what? Okay, I got it. Yeah, the face melted off. Let's go. Yeah. And it was just like, Jesus Christ. That's where I have issues. Like you said, I appreciate what they're doing. One of my all-time favorite things about Zombie, the VHS case, you've got that rotted face, the maggots all over it and everything. That is a fabulous design.
Yeah, it's
I
an
remember
iconic
seeing
image,
that
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember seeing it in the video store all the time, always being fascinated with it, going like, wow, what the hell is that? You know, as a kid, you see that and it should terrify you. I was fascinated by it. But I never rented the movie. It was just like, nah, but I'm still fascinated by this. But the movie as a whole, I don't know if I can watch it often. If there was one out of these that I would watch again, it would probably be this.
Yeah.
Because it is probably highest tier out of all of them. But yeah, they're just such a hard watch. Lester, what do you think?
When it comes to foreign films that do the zombie craze, I'm more a fan of the Asian,
Okay.
zombies and how they go about it. We've talked about Train to Busan before. Love the film.
Mm-hmm.
Love what they do with the film. There's a series on Netflix. I think it's called Everyone is Dead or All of Us Are Dead or something along those lines.
Yeah.
It's a zombie film. Well, zombie series, I guess I should say. I'm with you as far as, seeing the case for that film and the cover. I loved the cover art. I've probably only ever watched it one time, to tell you the truth.
I think I'm the same.
It's just one of those things where I'm with you. It's so slow. It takes so long. I'm okay with a little bit of build up to the carnage that ensues, but with certain movies, you expect certain things to happen. And with zombie movies, you sort of expect it to just get into the carnage right away.
Yeah.
I think there's a movie called like Maggie or something like that. Arnold Schwarzenegger's in it.
Right.
It's a hidden gem. It's a zombie movie, but it's not exactly what you expect a zombie movie to be.
Right.
It shows her turning gradually through the movie. It's a slow movie, but it's not necessarily a horror film.
Mm-hmm.
So I can forgive a movie like that for being slow, but when it comes to just, this is a full-fledged zombie movie, I don't need 5 minutes to watch some guy's face melt off,
Yeah, it's...
you don't need it.
No. So, I do want to come back to Train to Busan. We'll come back to that because I really want to talk about that.
I've got something from the 80s to bring up, too.
Oh, I've got a
well-
list, guys. We're going to be here all night. Everyone, pause the podcast now. Go pee. Get your supplies and come back.
Yes, because the 80s seems to be where the big boom happened. Now, kind of sticking with the Italian horror for just a second. Like I said, City of the Living Dead or Gates of Hell. There was kind of a trilogy that Fulci did. I kind of find it a little hard to call them zombie films, but I guess there are undead in them as they kind of, perpetuate the films or whatnot by the end. There was that. There was The Beyond and House by the Cemetery, all kind of within 2 years of one another, matter of fact, because...
Fuck Bob.
Fuck Bob. Jesus Christ. If you don't know about that, go watch the drive-in episode with House by the Cemetery.
And it's continued to run forward since we've all had to watch that. Fuck you, Bob. Fuck him.
Yeah. So, and The Beyond and House by the Cemetery both came out in 81. Like I said, they may be your jam. Not mine. Not Leah's. Not Lester's. I'm sorry. I mean, it's just, I can appreciate the horror or the gore and everything in it, but just fucking hell. There was one movie I wanted to bring up mainly because I've never seen it, but I remember the cover art very vividly. Came out the very same year as well as those, 1981. Considered one of the worst, if not the worst zombie film ever made, called Zombie Lake. Do either of you?
No.
No.
Not
Okay.
ringing a bell.
So if you look at the cover art, it's beautifully hand-drawn, or painted, matte, whatever. It's got a hand coming out of the water, kind of dunking someone's head in this lake, and then it looks like they're wearing like a army helmet or something like that, and their face is all kind of rotted off, but it's covered by the hand. There was something striking about that image. I remember seeing it along with, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Zombie, and be like, oh man, it's cool art, but I never did watch it, and doing research on it, I probably never will because everyone has said this is the worst piece of shit ever put on celluloid. So I was like, all right, well, I don't have to watch it. But then that brings us to 1985, unless either one of you have anything to fill in those gaps, because this is where we're going to get into the good stuff.
1985 was what I was going to bring up, actually. We're probably thinking the same movie, I'm assuming.
We got two, matter of fact.
I have one from 1984 that was just on my list of nods that I found to be really fun, and I only ever watched it for the first time like last year, and now I've watched it about like 5 times, and that's Night of the Comet. I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it existed, and it's so fun to me, and it really puts you in that place of like, man, if I was a fucking teenager in LA and then woke up and like everyone was gone and there's a few zombies, like, I don't know. And I don't know how that movie ever passed me by, but it's a fun watch.
It's crazy that you said that, because as soon as you said it, the whole movie just popped back into my head, and I freaking love that movie.
Yeah, it's so fun.
God.
Yeah.
It
just slipped by me too. So it's one of those underrated classics people don't ever really think about.
It's a wild ride. Like you said, it's just a fun movie. Like, you sit there and you watch it and you're like, God, this is so entertaining.
Mm-hmm. But I think the biggest one that kind of comes back, if we're going to 85, would be The Return of Romero and Day of the Dead. This one, I felt like I didn't appreciate it at the time that I watched it, but I feel like I've grown to appreciate it more over time. I think this was a very divisive film for some people, because I don't know what people were looking for with this when I hear the division on it, because Dawn of the Dead was such a masterpiece, if you will. I mean, some people may disagree, but I think says a lot about the culture. It does what zombie movies are supposed to do best, and that's what Romero has always done perfectly. It's not about the zombies, it's about the people, and it's about the story being told through those people within a zombie apocalypse. And I feel like that's where a lot of people miss the point of these movies. Here, it's the same thing. We're talking about these people just trying to survive. This has been going on for years now. Living in a bunker, they're trying to find their way. He even tries to evolve the zombies, and that might be one of the things that people maybe didn't like. I personally like Bub. I didn't feel like he was a bad character at all. I enjoyed the film. And again, I think it was one of those that I had to grow to appreciate a little bit over time. But thoughts on Day of the Dead?
I think that Bub's really like iconic to that, and he's the fun part of it. It's not one of like, this film doesn't like sit in the forefront of zombie movies for me, but even though like I love Romero, so again I'm like wah wah, just like fuck off Italian horror. This one isn't really like that huge for me, because there were other things that were happening in 85 for zombies too, so that's stick in my mind a lot more.
Yeah, as far as this movie, Bub was fun, and I felt like the movie was over the top at certain points, but that made it entertaining for me. If it's on TV, yeah, I'll watch it. I don't necessarily go out of my way to watch it.
Sure.
The biggest movie from 85 for me, zombie related. Do you have anything else before I get into this one?
No, because it's next on my list. I'm sure it's the same one.
The Return of the Living Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Look at my shirt.
Nice.
Yes.
I have so much love for this film.
You and me both. I'm sure all three of us do.
Oh yeah.
Just, I don't even know where to begin. Everything about the movie, one of my first crushes. I'm sure you can guess who it was. Dancing naked on the tombstones in the cemetery. I mean, come on. It's Elvira and it's her. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And my favorite joke when they're down there looking at the drum, and he goes, "These things don't leak, do they?" And he goes, "What? These are made in the USA." And he slaps it, and it just all that smoke and mist and chemical just leaks out all over him. I mean, even to this day, it still makes me laugh. And if I watch the first one, I instantly try to find the second one. I love that they have the two guys always returning, it seems like. And every, in the second movie, they're like, "I feel like we've been through this again." And, the other guy's like, "Not again." I mean, it's over the top. It's funny. It's gory. But it makes for one hell of a fantastic movie. Like, the instant you put it on, it doesn't dick around about anything. It gets right into what you're going to see. And even when the chemicals leak out into the factory the first time, and they've got those animals that are cut in half, and like they're barking and they're trying to move and everything. It's over the top, and you don't know whether to laugh or be in shock. So probably one of my most favorite zombie movies of all time. And as bad as it sounds, and I can be judged for this, it's fine. They did a film like in the 2000s called Rave to the Grave.
Mm-hmm.
I even watched that one, and for what it was, I enjoyed it too. And the zombie that's in that, they've got the really, messed up zombie. It's supposed to be the same zombie from the first movie. He's just even more messed up after all this time. And he's hitchhiking, and he's got a sign for where he's trying to go, and nobody will pick him up, obviously. But he's sitting there on the side of the road going, brains, trying to get picked up. And it's over the top. It's hilarious. You guys go ahead and give your thoughts.
Leah, go ahead.
It's such a comfort film, and I think that I really just started to appreciate it so much more in the last decade. Like, sure, I saw it as a young person, and I was like, that's funny, but like I continue to return to this. Like, it's on Tubi. I could literally watch this like 100 times. My brother is the same way as me, and like one thing that I really love about it is like all the kids look cool as fuck in their punk clothes, man. Like, it just such an aesthetic to it, and it gets so dirty and sloppy and wet. And this is also a place that like we see zombies talk for like probably one of the first times too, and they're smart and they're fucking with people. They're like, send more paramedics, send more cops, right? And so I don't know, it's so campy. It doesn't fall into the realm of like I'm terrified. Like, I mean, there are portions like when they rip apart trash and shit like that, right? And they get her, and after she's like, oh, I'd love to be ripped apart to death, like there are those aspects that are scary, but it's just so fun to watch. And I love that like the internet always like celebrates the day. I can't remember the exact date on it. I'm going to get my ass beat for it of like, this is the day that it happened. They're like, today's the day on Twitter of like, that the world fell apart and Return of the Living Dead. And yeah, my brother actually last Christmas got me like the best sweatpants of all time. And they're my go-to comfort pants. And it says Return of the Living Dead in slime green down one leg, but then they have the barrel zombie in there too. And it's just so fun. I never get sick of it. It's one of those movies I could put on 100 times and always stop what I'm doing at certain parts to watch. It's great.
Yeah, this was definitely one of those films that I remember seeing a lot at the video store. The case, the video art was iconic. I never watched it until later in life. It was, just wasn't one of those that I reached out and I didn't ever hear anything bad about. It just kind of slipped by me. There were a lot of horror films, classics that slipped by me until later in life. And I really did enjoy it. It was something I wasn't sure I needed because I wasn't sure what to expect. You see the title Return of the Living Dead, you see the cover and you're like, well, it seems like it's kind of maybe horror, but maybe there's something else a little miss. And it's just a wild romp of horror and comedy and almost parody in a way that you would be remiss to think that this could have just ended it all, and people are like, well, shit, zombies, it can't be taken seriously anymore, because this would be the film when you hear people do the zombie thing, brains, this is where that came from.
Right.
This is where that iconic thing came from that everyone associates with zombies. And they don't realize it, but it's true.
Yeah.
So how did we go from Return of the Living Dead back into zombies being serious? Because I have one more on my list that's going to take us a time jump. So does anyone else have anything that's not Return of the Living Dead 2 or 3 within this genre or this series that would fit within the 80s and 90s of zombies?
Rest of mine are from the 2000s, so.
I have a lot from the 2000s too, and I feel really shitty saying that out loud, but I guess, we're 20 years into it, so.
Yeah, but think about that. I don't want to say that Return of the Living Dead turned people away from zombies, but the proof is there. It kind of did. In a way, and I don't think it may have scared off filmmakers in essence of, can we do this seriously enough? Because Return of the Living Dead, even Return of the Living Dead 3 wasn't a zombie film per se. if you in the most traditional sense.
Oh yeah. I think a lot. I think a lot of it, why there's such a jump there, is as we get into the 80s, like zombies dominated for so long in film.
But not in the way we think.
And then you get into the 80s, though, and that's when we start getting into our slashers.
Right.
And so now all the studios are focusing on getting the slashers,
right, absolutely,
made. And I guess you could sort of consider, the Deadites. You could sort of think of them as a zombie-esque type thing, maybe more demonic. I would assume, I would say.
I don't like. There's a classification, much like we were talking about at the beginning. The voodoo zombies, not the same. Mm-hmm. Deadites, I can see where you can put them in the same category, but I don't feel like they're the same.
Yeah, I think they would be just slightly off. But I honestly think that's what happened in the 80s. Slashers took over.
They did.
Because we go through these intervals where certain things are, popular. Early 2000s, we sort of got back into zombies and vampires. Mm-hmm. But 80s, 90s, they kept reinventing the slashers. There were so many straight-to-home movies done of slasher flicks that were just, some of them were great, some of them were bad. But I think that's where the zombie stuff kind of slowed down. We got into the more comedic aspect of it. Slashers started taking over, and that's what they were doing, was focusing more on the slasher side of things for quite a while. I mean, horror has sort of hit an interesting plateau, though, as a whole now. It's not that they just focus on one sort of thing right now.
Sure.
Because everything's been sort of put out there already, so now they can do, here's a movie about a zombie, here's a movie about werewolves, here's a movie about vampires, here's slashers. Now that stuff's just getting released, right next to each other. Mm-hmm. But it seems like in the beginning there, it's sort of evolved from that. It's gone one genre aspect at a time, one subgenre, I guess I should say. We're going to do demon movies for a while. We're going to do zombie movies for a while. But I know I'm rambling on here, but
no, you're fine.
I think maybe that's why, after Return of the Living Dead and its sequels, I think that's why there is that jump, though, just because something else became mainstream at that time and got pushed out.
But I mean, even as we mentioned, you take a look at how many of these films that we had, zombie films, if you will, there's really not a lot by comparison. And
True.
You take a look at the horror genre as a whole, it was like it was being, played around with. The fact that Romero and Fulci were like the two main guys that had their stamp on it, 3 movies apiece, honestly, just within this time frame. Mm-hmm. And then not to mention whoever else tried to put their stamp on it, like the Zombie Lake shit that we're not going to talk about.
Night of the Creeps. That was probably like in the 80s. I don't know the exact date of that one too.
88.
But those were still alien slugs that went into your body, but they made you a zombie. So I mean, I really think that could fall into that realm.
Sure. It was one that I was debating on putting on there for that very reason that we were just talking about. I was like, yeah, it kind of is zombies, but is it? I don't know. But it's a good movie if you haven't checked it out, or at least it's entertaining to me. I find it fun. But if we want to go back to zombies again, this is where I'm going to take it. And again, the classification here is muddy, but I feel like it's worth bringing up because it changed the game. 28 days later in 2002, Virus, this is where fast zombies came into play. Now, I say it's questionable because it's a virus transmitted through the blood. It kind of gets on you, in you, whatever, and then you turn. So you're not technically dying, you're just becoming infected. So I feel like this could be muddy water to tread. But honestly, it did start the fast zombie craze because there's that idea of like, oh my God, it's an undead. They're running after me. And then from there, we see Dawn of the Dead 2 years later. But in that same year as Dawn of the Dead, we also got Shaun of the Dead from Edgar Wright. And this was a masterclass in horror and comedy, because you think you're in for a comedic ride through and through, and then we shift gears toward the end and we're like, oh shit, this got serious, like really, really serious. And it's almost jarring in a way. Like it was jarring to me the first time I watched it, thinking like, shit, this isn't funny anymore. But all in the best ways. And I really commend what it did, but it really went back and harkened days to zombies and what zombies were. Whereas Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead was pushing zombies in a new direction with the fast zombies and really combining what they did in 28 Days Later with, you know, the Dawn of the Dead aspect and trying to make something fresh. So thoughts on either of those movies, all three of them, whatever you want.
I like 28 Days Later, but I'm actually like, maybe I'm an idiot, but I'm a bigger fan of 28 Weeks Later, and it is 100% because of those fast zombies. Like there's two scenes in particular of that movie, like at the beginning when they're all in the house and Robert Carlyle leaves everyone behind and they get fucked up, and like there's some serious fast running through that. And then also too, when later he's the zombie in the subway below ground and they're all locked in there and like he's just destroying everybody. Like those, like if they, horror really doesn't make me shit my pants very much. If something makes me uncomfortable or it's like really intense like that, and like that film does that for me, like I'm just like, oh my god. And I found it, I like that one a lot more than the first one, even though like you said, there is a ton to attribute to the 28 Days Later as well. And I find it really interesting in 28 Weeks Later that there are people like Rose Byrne and Jeremy Renner and like Imogen Poots who are not big in what they do today. They're showing up in a horror film again. So, but there are those specific, like the fast zombies. There's a handful of them that like, oh my God, gets my adrenaline. Like I'm stressed out watching this. And so I appreciate those things when films do that to me because they're far and few between.
Right.
I'll agree with you on the 28 Weeks Later, because I did like 28 Days Later. Parts of it seemed like they drug out just a little bit to me with it, but the scene in particular that you're talking about at the beginning,
oh god, it's so terrible.
In the house of 28 Weeks, to this day, if I see that clip anywhere, I sit there and I watch it because I can't look away, because it gets the adrenaline going, like you're locked into it, and he's running, and then they're coming from everywhere.
You see the area of it,
yeah, it is just you're like, is this guy gonna make it? And you know how it's gonna go, but you're like, is he gonna make it? What's gonna happen? What's gonna happen next? This is crazy. Like it gets you in that headspace where you're panicking and you don't even realize it.
Well, they panic so hard. Like the poor dude's at the boat, and he's like getting the boat ready, and he doesn't even make it. Doesn't he get chopped apart by the propellers or some shit?
Yeah,
like
I think he throws him out, because I think they get a hold of the guy or something, and he like throws him out and goes, and the propeller just it's just even to this day.
So much stress.
I mean, but I really 28 Days Later I will commend, because the guy wakes up and he doesn't know what's going on. He starts running from, I think he's in like a church or something, and there's one, it's been a while since I've seen it, so forgive me here. It might not be the beginning, but it is a scene in it. Like he sees someone and they're kind of far away and they start coming toward him. And the next thing you know, he's getting chased by all of these, zombies or whatever you want to call them. And we get to these other people that help him, and they pull down this gate, and they're all just at the gate, shaking it, trying to get in. And to me, that, that's so real. Like that's the thing that really, I think, got to me about it, is there's a sort of realism about it, because we don't know what would happen if a zombie apocalypse really happened, but neither did that guy. and you realize that when you see him, you're like, this guy has no idea what's happening. He's been in a coma or what have you, and he woke up to this, and he's confused and he's scared, and he has every right to be, because I'm scared for him. So yeah, I would give those movies credit in that regard every day.
Mm-hmm.
And something that film also nods on that we do see in other like zombie universes is like ultimately like there's the people that we need to be afraid of, because at the end, like all the army dudes and just how they're like trying to assert their dominance, and the way that they deal with things. And we see that like as a common theme in like The Walking Dead too. Sure, all these fucking zombies are here, but once we get past like dealing with these zombies, like, you know, the enemies are ourselves.
They almost become the second threat.
Yeah.
Here
you are thinking, I've got to save myself from zombies, and it's just like, oh shit, look, it's the army. They're gonna save us. No, bitch, they're not. You're gonna be their slaves.
No, you know, the end of the world brings forth the darkest parts of people. And when they convey that in these films or these series, it really hits you definitely in your emotions, because I haven't been as true to The Walking Dead as I used to be. But there were a lot of characters that their deaths did not feel justified to me when I first started watching it. And it wasn't that they got killed by zombies. You know, they got killed by other people. And it's just, it shows a darker side of humanity. And here I go getting deep, but follow me here. In a sense, I think when you're watching these films or these series and you see the zombies and you see these people, you almost have to ask yourself, who's the real monster? Like these zombies, it's their nature. But these people have a choice. Like these zombies, this is what they've become. And that's what really bothers me about a lot of this stuff. I sit there and I ask myself, like, I almost prefer the zombies. They seem like they're better than the people. And at the end of the day, like it really makes you think to yourself, if this really were to happen, what kind of situation would I be in?
Absolutely. And you're forgetting a really like important concept to zombies. They are us. We were, you know, they don't just like, we just came out of like poof thin air and we're space aliens. Like they were humans before that. So I really think that that's some sort of tether to this whole zombie culture that we, you know, continue to watch and find terrifying, because at the end of the day, they are us. Like, would you want to be out there after you got bit walking around, or like eating your neighbor's cat and her?
And that's the thing too, you know, you see these characters, especially in The Walking Dead, they get bit and they have time before they turn, and they're like, you know, kill me. You know, it brings your own humanity into it. You know, that's a big question. Like, if I got bit, would I want my family to kill me? Would I want them to cut my arm off or my leg if I got bit on, you know, my arm or my leg? Or would I want them to just leave me, you know, and I can hope that maybe there'll be a cure sometime, or I'm going to turn into a zombie. I mean, it makes you question your humanity. Who knew that zombie movies were so deep?
Or to go back to Steven's point of Shaun of the Dead, you just keep your friend in the shed at the end.
Yeah, I mean,
right? Like, I've learned how to manage these guys. We still play video games
had a cameo.
Together.
They both had a cameo in another zombie movie, and I'm trying to think of what movie it is. It's them as the characters from Shaun of the Dead, and these people are taking selfies with them.
Yeah.
At some place, they're chained up. I cannot think of what movie it is.
Now, to continue our journey, I mean, you guys bounced a little over, but we're gonna.
Sorry, it's hard not to.
No. It's fine. No, because we still have something to explore. So, 2009, 5 years after, you know, Dawn of the Dead and all that, we get Ruben Fleischer's Zombieland, which came out of nowhere. You know, zombies really weren't in the zeitgeist. They kind of were, but not in film. You know, I feel like there was a resurgence with zombie films kind of being re-examined, found by new viewers, whether it be Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead, whatever it may be. The zombie culture was starting to rise. Like, interest in it was starting to come back, and they were starting to come back into the zeitgeist, because I know during this time in the early 2000s is when I was starting to discover new zombie films, older ones that I had never seen. So there was something within that period, in that decade, that really made them kind of start to rise in popularity that they hadn't quite had. However, they had not hit mainstream popularity, because even going to theaters, I mean, Zombieland, it was a modest success, but it wasn't like, oh my God, this is, you know, everyone's got to go see it, and it just broke all the records. Same with all the aforementioned movies that we mentioned. But then we get to 2010, and that's where we get The Walking Dead. Now, the comic had started back in 2003, so it was already out there in the world. It was about to hit maybe it was close to its 100th issue, so it was reaching that pinnacle about the time the show started. I had a buddy of mine that, like, he was huge into zombie. He was one of the original zombie adopters, okay? Going way back to our childhood, he knew everything about zombies. He was the zombie fanatic. He watched these movies as a kid. He was in it. Everything zombies, he was there. Had all the books. Said, here, read this. I hadn't even heard about it before the show came about. So that's where I kind of got introduced to The Walking Dead. And then I kind of did the reflection. It was like, oh, that's kind of like that. That's kind of like that. Cool, cool, cool. And he was so upset in his heart of hearts. I mean, again, being a fan from, decades. And then suddenly it becomes this cultural phenomenon.
Oh,
and he's like, now
everyone's in on it.
Yeah, it was just like, I liked it when it was an underground thing. Like it was when it felt like more personal, like it was mine. Now it feels like, everything, everybody, studios are like, well, this zombie thing is really great. We got to jump on board and we got to do this thing. And it shows. It shows after The Walking Dead, because once that became a thing, everybody jumped on board. And I'm gonna get to where I feel, and maybe you guys have an opinion on this, but I feel for me there was a point where I was like, okay, I'm done with this shit. Like it was way too much for me to handle. Like I was just like, it's ruined it for me because they're everywhere. But we were kind of talking about The Walking Dead, and you guys were bringing up good points about, what the themes are, how the zombies are us. But I guess I want to explore why was it this thing? Why was it The Walking Dead specifically that turned it into a mainstream culture? And all I can really kind of pinpoint to is that it was a series. It was a TV show. Because we had not seen any kind of zombie TV shows, at least not to my knowledge, prior to this. So do you think it was just because it was something a little bit more accessible? It was just, what do you call it? Must-see TV, if you will. That people were just like, we got to tune into this. And then it just became a thing. Or was there something else at play here?
I personally think that the fact that The Walking Dead was a comic actually helped quite a bit. I do agree that I think it being a series on TV did help it a lot, but I think a lot of that community that read the comics and everything came on to watch it be turned into a TV series. And I remember when The Walking Dead was first getting some traction as becoming a TV show, a lot of the articles for it said extremely graphic comic series Walking Dead is being made into a TV show, because the comic is in black and white and it's extremely gory, and they just kept bringing that up. Like, it's an extremely gory comic and they're going to turn it into a TV series. So I think a lot of people's morbid curiosity got to them. And if you think when The Walking Dead came out, we had been getting zombie movies still, but a lot of them felt like they were just rehashes of everything that had already been around. And the character of Rick Grimes, I think, is a fantastic character. I think they wrote him really well in the beginning of the series, especially. But you get so attached to him as a character, even when you first see him. And again, the same reason that we sort of praise 28 Days Later, or at least I do, the character is confused and really lost when he wakes up. And that sort of connects with other people. And I think that's what really launched it. People had a morbid curiosity. There were comic fans that had a morbid curiosity of what it was going to look like as a series. And then you put all of that together, you get your first episode, and you see this man who is just lost. He was a sheriff. He was trying to do right. Horrible accident. Wakes up after his horrible accident, and the world's been overrun by zombies. It's one of those things where, at least I watched the first episode, and after watching it, I went, what is going to happen to this guy? What's going to happen next? This is crazy. And I think they had a great way of doing the dynamic that he wasn't with his family. And I think that got people's attention, because yes, people care about the monsters in in The Walking Dead. They want to see the zombies. They want to see the deaths and everything, but they also want to see the human side of things. If you can tell a good story of people trying to survive and bring in a situation of what it would maybe be like for all of us in the real world, you connect with it. I always say, and I know this is going to sound cheesy, I think a good zombie series or movie is almost like a soap opera that has zombies in it. I know that sounds weird, but that's the best way that I can put it. It had the drama. It had, a baby that might not be Rick's, his best friend sleeping with his wife. There's the guy that beats his wife that nobody says anything about. There's the mysterious guy that rides the motorcycle and he's a badass. It's got Michael Rooker, because I'm just going to say it's got Michael Rooker because he's awesome. But it's got all of these aspects, and then you throw the zombies in, and half the time you're more focused on the people, so that when the zombies do come in, you're like, oh shit, yeah, they got to deal with the zombies too. And I sort of started to lose interest when we started getting into some of the more strange aspects. Like, I like the Whisperers and all that. I think they're cool and everything, but to me, it kind of drug out a little bit longer than it needed to, I think, in certain aspects. It's still a great series, and I'm going to say it again because I always mention it during the show, and it's kind of cool. They've been throwing in some really cool zombies lately, and on the latest episode, they had a Freddy Krueger zombie.
Shots.
Don't know if you guys saw that, but it was badass.
Yeah.
But I think, to me, that is what made The Walking Dead so popular. It was the fact that you really connected to these characters, and you did it quickly. And then they delivered on the gore aspect of it. And even the marketing team over there did a fantastic job. They did a web series where they took certain zombies from the series that stood out, like the zombie that Rick shoots that is cut in half and it's crawling on the ground and it's real thin. They actually did it was like free to watch on YouTube or something, I think.
They did all the little shorts.
And they told the story. So like you even connected with some of the zombies in it. And as weird as it sounds, I think it kind of helps that they don't call them zombies in the series. They call them walkers. I think that helps, because I think people still love zombies. They always will. But I think people just kind of got tired of hearing the word zombie. I know that sounds strange, but we were so used to hearing zombie in all these films. So they sort of reinvented it by just changing the name. They didn't reinvent what zombies were, but they sort of labeled them differently, I guess you could say.
They
So
lived in a
that's where
world
I
that
stand on it.
didn't ever like have a horror. They knew what vampires were or werewolves, but like in that spectrum, like they never had like the zombie monsters, and so that's why we see in these different like geographic locations why people call them something different. I'm a massive Walking Dead fan. I have never stopped watching. I've watched all the spin-offs. I have a Michonne tattoo because I'm a fucking dork. Like I have a lot of shit, and I think for me, like at that time, like there wasn't much horror on TV. So to see like a series that is horror based with zombies, I was like, holy shit. And one thing too, like aside from the gore, we've got Greg Nicotero, who is just like, I am a sucker, like coming from the 80s and 90s of like practical effects, and to still have that in there. And then the small little details too, like there would be like specific nods to Romero or this, that, and the other thing, like through his zombies, there'd be a very specific zombie. And so us horror dorks would see those little nuggets and be like, holy shit, that looks like what you just said, like Freddy Krueger, or, I think they did a bub one at one point as well, so while we are invested in these people, I think for the time that it came out, we were just really ready for something that was different, that, people were dying in. And yeah, I love it. And I love that, like, so now this year we're on the last 8 episodes of The Walking Dead itself, and it's ending. And then there's like 3 more spin-offs coming, and holy shit. Like, I've watched The World Beyond, I've watched Fear, and I love all of it. Like, I did find that in the middle there was a lull for the Walking Dead seasons, but once Angela Kang took over, like, holy shit, man, they were often firing like on stuff that like it felt really similar to the beginning seasons that were really super good. And so I'm just probably never giving up on this like universe. I'm fucking in it. And after that, like they mentioned at Comic-Con this year, that they're finally gonna like Rick and Michonne. Like, fucking come on. Like, I'm not gonna give up now. They need to find each other.
Yeah.
And see, that's where I'm at. Like, maybe I kind of jumped off the horse when things kind of slowed down a little bit. I think it's one of those things. Sometimes I'll go back to a series like after it's ended, and I'll completely rewatch it.
Yeah.
Because I still see stuff from The Walking Dead that I absolutely think is just amazing. I love Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Oh, fuck
and
yeah.
every time I see him in it, I absolutely love whatever clip I see him in. I need to see the new. It's like the little episodes that they're doing.
Oh, the Tales of the Walking Dead. They were really
thank
great.
you.
They were really great.
Terry Crews is in it. They've got a few big. He's the only name that, like, I know that sounds awful, but he's the only name that like sticks out to me right at the moment.
They had Parker Posey, who like I haven't seen
There it
in
is,
fucking
yeah.
years, and she did an episode with Jillian Bell, which was really weird to me because it was almost like Groundhog Day, but in the zombie apocalypse with them. And I just really enjoyed that there were all these different stories from around the world because we're so focused in fear in Walking Dead of like these are our people, but like what the fuck is going on everywhere else?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, with my connection with The Walking Dead, kind of going back to where I said the comics, I got into them really hard. I've always been a comic nerd. And when I got into that series, the comic, oh man, you talk about deviating. It's harsh. I mean, there's some shit in there. If you've never read the comics, it's harsh. And when they started changing stuff, like with Carol, for example, her character is drastically different in the comics.
Big time.
And I was concerned at how they were going to approach certain characters going forward, especially when Negan came in, because when I got introduced to Negan, oh my God, I was like, this is an interesting character that I'm attached to. And then when they announced he was coming to the show, I was like, all right, well, who are you going to get? I was a little taken aback by Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Not that I have any problem with him whatsoever as an actor, but I was like, well, that's not how I see Negan. But again, that's perception through comics, and that's different. But he brought his A game. He did it his way, and he really brought in an awesome performance. But as the comic ended, and I knew where it was headed, I think I just kind of disconnected from the show because I felt there was a lull to me, and I was like, well, because they were getting into the whispers, but they just weren't getting there. And I was like, come on, let's just go. And I felt like they were taking their time. So I felt like I lost interest because of that. And that's on me because I was just getting impatient. Same with the Fear of the Walking Dead. I felt like there were just some things I was kind of hoping they would just kind of pick up on. I love, like, the cast where I dropped off at, Garrett Dillahunt. I fucking love him. He's like one of those people I would definitely love to meet.
Yeah.
You know, he's just a delight. And then just around that time, I love seeing Morgan back, but there was just something in the story that was just, it felt like it was a drag. And I was like, I was not paying as much attention to it. I didn't feel like I was invested in the characters, and I just kind of checked out. And I never checked out The World Beyond because of that. But again, during this time, I mean, these are fairly new sections of the series. And as I kind of mentioned, you know, when this show took off, everybody had to jump on board. It was like, well, we got to do this. We got zombie comedy, zombie rom-coms, you know, World War Z. That was where I dropped off. That's where I was like, you know what?
Oh, I love it.
because to me, I was just like, what? So that to me was the pinnacle. We've gone high budget zombie film. Hollywood's throwing every dollar they can at it, and it shows. And I guess that was what it was. It just felt like, so you've got this big name actor, you got all these CG zombies, you're trying to do the biggest zombie thing, and it just felt so disingenuous to the way I viewed zombies. Now, I don't have any problem with the movie. It's not a bad movie. It's just when I finished, I was like, I don't think I want to watch zombies for a while. Yeah. Like, I need a break. Like, that just felt like it was zombie overload, too much, and I just needed to step away. Uh, and it actually prevented me from watching Train to Busan for a long time after it came out, because I was like, because I heard people, yeah, Train to Busan, it's amazing. And I heard the same thing with World War Z, and I was just like, whatever. Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but
I love World War Z because it's again, like 28 weeks later, it stresses the shit out of me. Like there's like some scenes in there, like, can you imagine like being on a fucking airplane and where are you going? Like those types of scenes really stressed me out in that film. Even though I'm not fully on board with their version of the zombies, like you said, like there are like, that's a comfort film to watch. And there's like, in the beginning when they're in the city and it's like, he's just, why is this traffic happening? And then the fucking garbage truck and people are getting like, that chaos, that stress. That's why that film sticks with me. And I'm just like, oh my God, it makes my heart race like numerous times through there. So that's why I have enjoyed that film.
Right. And that's, I'm so glad I gave Train to Busan a chance, and I actually watched it prior to the drive-in. So when they showed that on there, I was like,
fun.
I was like, oh yes. And it made me feel so good to see Joe Bob getting emotional, because like when I finished watching it, I was like, holy shit. Like I was trying, well, I cried. We all cried. Come on. I mean, you got to have a heart of steel if you didn't cry. Because that, to me, showcased what makes a zombie movie so good. The relatability. I mean, you might not have to relate to a father and his daughter, but you relate to the idea of just that loss. If you put anybody in, it could be a spouse, it could be, a sibling, whatever it is, you're going to relate to that heartbreak that little girl went through, having to watch her father and knowing he's going to die. I mean, it's relatable in every sense of the word, and it's still about a human story. It's not about the zombies. It's not about what the zombies are. Zombie action in that was fantastic, but it was all about them and their struggle and their problem. And oh man, it was such a great, and it's that kind of storytelling that I'm hoping for with The Last of Us. Now, granted, that is not a zombie movie per se, but it has very zombie-like elements. So I'm hoping that they find a way to translate that story from video game to television series properly, while adding maybe some new bits. I mean, I understand maybe not everybody has played this video game. Video games are not for everybody. Same with comics. Comics are not for everyone. They're not going to know the story. But you have people who want that purity. With The Walking Dead, Glenn had to die the way Glenn died. Okay, that was a must. When Negan came in, he had to die. Period. Wasn't going to take it any other way. If he didn't die that way, well, then you've lost me. And they did. So I appreciated that. And that's kind of what I want here. Give me, if it's something iconic, I want that. But beyond that, tell it your own way. Make it fresh, make it original, and that's what I hope for. But yeah, zombies in the mainstream, I don't know. I had one other one I just wanted to bring up just because I just wanted to say this, but when Disney got into zombies.
Oh fuck.
Yeah. That Disney zombies can get fucked right up, because I don't know what that is. No. So, but I am looking forward to Marvel zombies. That ought to be fun.
Yeah. There's very few big budget Hollywood zombie movies that I've liked, and we've mentioned them, like World War Z and 28 Weeks Later. That was American as well, half and half. But like the ones that I love are like gems from other countries, like similar to the Train to Busan. Have you guys ever seen The Horde from France in 2009?
Why do I feel like I've heard of that?
I
feel
love
like
it.
I have seen
it is it's kind of like the zombie version of From Dusk Till Dawn, only in the effect that you go in thinking the movie is going to be one thing and then it turns out to be something else. And it's like cops and gangsters that are like, there's this like whole thing that went wrong. But then all of a sudden, while, they're going to go get their revenge, the fucking like the zombie plague reaches, breaks out. But what I really love that we don't really see in a ton of zombie movies is like, there's hand-to-hand combat. These motherfuckers are fighting zombies like roundhouse kicks and like punching them in the face and stuff. And so it's something that's a bit different. And like, yeah, there's some really iconic scenes in there. So if you've never seen that one, go check it out. That's like one of my favorites.
On my list. Put that down.
The only thing that I would love to see that, and maybe it has shown up just because I've missed some of The Walking Dead. They have shown in the comics the winter time, and they have shown like some of the zombies frozen to the ground, things like that. I would love if they just like touched on that a little bit. I know that's extremely random, but I just
probably because they film in Georgia, you know, that we always see like the summer and whatnot. But you're right about that. Dead Snow, though, that's zombies in the snow.
Yeah.
You know, and that's from Denmark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dead Snow. That's the one about
Dead Snow, Norway.
Yeah, about the Nazi zombies.
Yeah.
Which, you know, either give me a lot of drama and make it scary, like in The Walking Dead, stuff like that, or give me funny zombies. Like that's kind of where I stand. I want either or.
Yeah.
But
I think the genre is not going away anytime soon. I feel like the craze has died down just a little bit because there was a time in the height of The Walking Dead, it was just way too much and I couldn't take it. Because I wanted to enjoy it, but it just felt like an overload, and I was just like, I need a break. So where it goes from here, I don't know. I don't know if there'll ever be a resurgence or if it will just drop off the face of the earth and then just kind of find itself, you know, being obscure again. But I guess only time will tell. Now, if you guys have anything else you want to bring up with that, that's all I got.
I don't know. I think that we're lucky that we live in a time where there's so much, because like I've always been a zombie fan, and I remember like even before The Walking Dead coming along that I would like, you know, try to go look up zombie movies I'd never heard of from different countries and things. And those, like I said, those are the gems that surprised me. Like Wreck from Spain. That's that one was fun. And even Canada, we've made some really good zombie films too, like Blood Quantum, where it's all the indigenous people don't get the virus and it's us white people that are the virus. Fido. You guys ever watch Fido? That's Canadian.
Yes.
Fido's one of my favorites.
You know, right? And then like, I brought this film over to the boys at the Swearwolves, and it was too slow for them, but Ravenous, Les Enfants, and then they've compared that to like the societal constructs that like the original Night of the Living Dead did, and it's slower, but they're different types of zombies. And so yeah, Canada's put out some good ones too, and so I like finding those things that I've never heard of. Or like the TV show Dead Set from the UK. And I think that was about 2010. So like, it's the universe. They're all doing it somewhere. So I like finding those things. And I don't think that we're going to run out of those stories. It's just like you're saying, Steven, you're like, I've had enough. I need a fucking break. And it's just like, I think that that's like my drug, that I like to watch these zombie films.
I think they'll always exist in some sense. I think somebody will always be making something zombie related, but it's the same thing, you know. I think there's always going to be somebody working on some kind of vampire project or something like that. These are the staples. You know, they've been around for so long. People have always been afraid of them to some degree, so there's always something to explore. So
I think it was a matter of quality versus quantity to me. It felt like the quality was dropping, but there was so much of it that I wasn't enjoying what I was seeing, and that's what kind of made me go, oh man, come on. Like, I love this stuff, and you're ruining it for me because you're just putting so much crap out there. Now, other people may say the same thing about comic book movies, and, you know, I could disagree with the Marvel stuff because I'm a nut for it, but that's a whole other beast, I'm just saying. But, yeah, zombies, I'm coming back around. So I do love the older stuff. I'd love to love some newer stuff, and I really hope that we continue to get some quality movies, TV shows, whatever they want to do. I'm here for it. So
me too.
Hey, we did it. We almost hit the 2-hour mark.
Holy shit! If you're still listening and hanging on, kudos to you.
Yeah. So, Ramblers, I know we kept you for a long time, but hey, let us know how you feel about zombies. What is your favorite zombie project, movie, TV show, whatever, comics, why not? There might be more zombie comics out there that I don't even know about. You can tell us all that stuff on Twitter at Horror Ramblings. And if you've got more to say and a tweet just won't cut it, you can send us an email at horrorramblings@gmail.com. If you love social media groups, you can follow us on Facebook, join our Facebook group, and hang out with fellow horror fans like yourself. You can even find us on Instagram to see an assortment of horror images whenever we decide to post, because I'm terrible at it. Lester does it more than I do. Do you Discord? Then you can join us on Discord. We tried to start up a little Horror Ramblers room in the Discord, and you can discuss horror stuff. There's not a lot of people over there right now, but we got to get more people in. We can talk about it. And if you're feeling generous and want to support the show financially, you can head on over to patreon.com/pencil-and-paper-productions to chuck in a buck and help this and other shows under the banner Like It grow. And if you want to say nice things about the show, you can head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us that beautiful 5-star review. You don't even have to type in anything. Just hit the 5-star thing and just walk away. And you can express your feelings if you want, help the show grow at the same time, and you can do that very same thing on Spotify if you're so inclined. You have to listen to at least one episode. I apologize for that. But hey, once you've done that, you can hit that 5 stars. You don't even have to say anything. Same thing, too. And you can even answer questions and polls that we post up. I don't know what this week's will be. Maybe what is your favorite thing that I just asked you that you can answer on Twitter. So wherever it's convenient for you, that's all I'm saying. It's all appreciated. Most importantly, tell your fellow horror fiends to search Horror Ramblings on the preferred podcasting platform. We should be everywhere that you can find your favorite podcast. But you can keep up with any and all things at pencilpaperproductions.com/horror-ramblings. Links are in the show notes for your convenience.
And remember, guys, stay spooky out there.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even more.
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.